All right. So, hello, Math 2 students. We are now on to Module 6, so super exciting. So we're going to start off with some definitions. A ratio. So, a ratio shows the relative sizes of two or more values. We'll change this to shows. So really what this means is it kind of compares. And there's several different ways to show a ratio. So let's say we have one boy and 3 girls. Okay, there's several different ways to show this ratio. One would be 1 to 3, 1 boy to 3 girls. Another way would be we have 1/4 boys and 3/4 girls. Another is 0.25 are boys. So we can show it with fractions. We could show it with the colon symbol showing the ratio there. We could show it with decimals, and we could also show it with percentages. We could say 25% are boys. So there's a lot of different ways to write ratios. Next, we have a proportion. So a proportion essentially shows that 2 ratios are equal. All right. For example, we know that like if I said 3/12, that is equal to 1/4, right? Those are equivalent fractions. They're also equivalent ratios. All right. So let's go ahead and try this. So we have 2 ratios, x to y and 5 to 6, set up in a proportion. What makes it a proportion? The equal sign. So you have 2 ratios that are set equal to each other. So they say x or y over x equals, well, if we see here, we could rearrange these. We know about, I'm sure you've seen cross multiplication before, where you multiply across. So we could end up with 6x equals 5y. And then we could rearrange this in several different ways. All right. We want to get it so that we have a y on top and an x on the bottom. So what if we divided this side by x? All right. And we divided these sides by 5. Watch what happens. These x's cancel. And these 5's cancel, and we get that y over x equals 6 over 5. So what happened there? Well, we can kind of see that you can essentially flip a ratio upside down, or I guess flip the proportion. So we found that x over y equals 5 over 6. Well, y over x equals 6 over 5. Okay, and I showed how that happens over here. Next, they want us to find x over 5. So let's try this again. We're going to cross multiply. We still get our 6x equals 5y. We want an x on top and a 5 on the bottom. So let's divide this side by both sides by 5. So we get that 5 on the bottom. And then we need to get the x by itself. So let's divide both sides by 6. These 6's cancel. These 5's cancel. And we get that x over 5 equals y over 6. Oops. All right. And you can see you can kind of rearrange. Look what happens here. You can move the y, the x and the y to the top, and then the 5 and the 6 on the bottom. So essentially we kind of just like, we had x over y, 5 over 6, and we rearranged. Swap these guys. All right. Next, we've got 6 over y. So we want to keep the 6 on top, y on the bottom. So we have 6x equals 5y. I'm going to divide by y. And I need to get the x or the 6 by itself, so I'm going to divide by x. So then x is here, cancel. Y is here, cancel. We get 6y equals 5 over x. All right, so the means extremes product theorem. All right, so basically what that means is that in a proportion, the products need to be equal. So what they mean by that is that when you cross multiply, you can still keep that equal sign there. So for example, if you look, what's the ratio I gave up here? 12, so 3 over 12 and 1 over 4. We know these are equal, right? 3/12 and 1/4 are the same thing. So watch what happens when we multiply across. We get 12 and we get 12. Okay, that's what they mean by that. When you cross multiply, the products are going to be equal. All right. So here it says solve each proportion. So we're going to do this thing called cross multiply and divide. So we're going to cross multiply and we get 7x equals 60. All right. And then we have to divide to get the x by itself. So we get 60 divided by 7, which can't really be reduced. So you could leave it as 60 over 7. Or you could write it as a fraction, but it's kind of an ugly fraction. So honestly, I would say this is probably our best answer, 60 over 7. It might be nicer to write it like this. All right. Now this one's a little bit trickier. All right, we still have to cross multiply, but notice how we have two terms here. Whenever you have two terms, you have to use parentheses. So we're going to do 4 times x plus 3 using parentheses. The two terms need to go inside parentheses. We get 8x. Now we have to distribute. So we get 4x plus 12 equals 8x. Minus 4x, we get 12 equals 4x. Divided by 4, we get x equals 3. All right. So now let's go ahead and try another one. Again, we're going to cross multiply. And remember, this guy needs to stay inside parentheses. Whenever there is a binomial, it's got to stay in parentheses. So we're going to get 18x equals 6 times x plus 6. We're going to distribute. And then we have to get all of the x's on the same side. We get 12x equals 36. Divided by 12, and we get x equals 3. All right, let's try some more. So, next we have example 3. It says if 5x equals 7y, then x over y equals. So all you have to do is rearrange this, right? We're trying to get at x over y. All right, so we want to get the y on the bottom, and we want to get the x by itself on top. So we got to divide by 5. These guys cancel. These guys cancel. And we are left with x over y equals 7 over 5. All right, next. If 13a equals 8b, then a over b. So we need to get a on top, b on bottom. So let's divide by b. And we need to get a by itself, so let's get rid of the 13. These guys cancel, these guys cancel, and we get a over b equals 8 over 13.